Hey, I'm Josh, co-founder and CEO of Expansive, and this is the FM Fix, our podcast. Our guest today is a leader who's redefining what great FM looks like: strategic, people-focused, and performance-driven. Stacey Kelly is the Associate Director of Facility Services at Apleona Ireland, where she oversees operations for more than 150 sites across retail, pharma, and public sector clients. Her team delivers both hard and soft services, managing full P&L, HR, and HSEQ responsibilities, while maintaining an unwavering focus on quality, culture, and collaboration. Over her decade in FM, Stacey has grown from hands-on coordinator to senior leader, building teams, mentoring future managers, and leading large-scale transformation programs. In this episode, she shares what she's learned about managing people at scale, driving operational excellence, and creating FM strategies that empower teams and deliver measurable results. Stacey.
Hello.
You've had such a rapid rise in FM, so I'd love to start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
You've gone from facilities coordinator to associate director in just over a decade. What have been the key turning points in your career?
A decade. We're sounding old. So yeah, I suppose take you right back to the start. Starting out on the service desk was really, really valuable. I think anybody starting on a service desk where all our calls come in, it's the forefront of all our clients. You get to learn on the systems. You get to learn, you're really starting from the ground up when you start with a service desk. So I think that really led me into becoming an FM. I did the facilities management course for a year as well. Naturally kind of led me into being an FM. Led into being a contract manager. And then, ultimately in 2023, I became an associate director. I didn't feel I was ready for the step, but we have great leadership. They felt I was ready. And I took the step and never looked back since.
And now you're overseeing an enormous portfolio.
Quite large, yeah.
You oversee over 150 sites. What's the hardest part of managing such a large, diverse portfolio?
Yeah, those sites are all different clients. They're a mixture of retail, pharma, government buildings. So I think the hard thing for me is that I can't be everywhere at once and my staff can't be everywhere at once, but we just need to have a really strong team on the ground. And again, with a lot of buildings, our clients aren't necessarily on all those sites all the time anyway, so they need to have the trust in us that we're carrying out the work. All the compliance checks are done, we're meeting our KPIs, that their customers are happy, that their staff are happy. So again, it's having really, really strong staff at those sites, strong reporting lines, strong communication, and again, strong systems that the client can log in and, see that we're doing the work visually, come to your metrics and your data, and just a really strong team that I can trust.
And do you have to adapt your leadership style across those different sectors?
Retail is very fast-paced, and not only do I have to adapt my leadership style, but I have to pick the right people that I know can work well under pressure in a very kind of fast-paced environment of retail as it is. And again, it's very different in pharma. It's very compliance-driven, very diligent person, very health and safety focused. So again, that's a slightly different personality to your retail person as well. Government building, somebody really confident, speaking with clients and public bodies. So I adapt my style and also my team style as well of who's working on those contracts, which is key to the success really.
So what are some of the top tips in how you find the right people, and putting the right team in place?
Yeah, I think fortunately for me, and I suppose in the company I'm in, a lot of my staff are internal, as in they came from the service desk, a lot of them. So I watched them grow. I knew what they were like under pressure, because to me, I think if you can work on the service desk, and especially working on the service desk for retail, 150 different calls coming in days. I think we were trending on 600 or 700 calls a month just on our retail. And there was 2 people dealing with those calls. So those 2 people now work for me, and plus the other 2 people before that. So I already knew that they could deal with high pressure environments. They were loyal to the company, they knew the systems, they knew the client, they knew the contracts. So I fortunately got to grow those people internally as well.
And what's your style? How do you help people grow?
Open and honest communication. So I sit down with people and I ask them, how do you want to develop in the company? We have a kind of a smart review that we have every year. So one of the goals we say is, okay, what do you want to learn? Where can we assist you? What education do you want to do? We'll fully support you in that education. They'll offer up some ideas. Maybe I'll offer up some ideas. I've done a lot of courses. So some I recommend and some I wouldn't. So I would, recommend those courses. And again, I think it's creating really clear roadmaps for employees to see where they can go in the company and that the opportunities are there.
Do you think there's enough people falling into the FM industry?
No, I don't think there's enough awareness of what FM is. And I know that just from a personal setting, from speaking to people, it's, it's not a radio station. And again, it's going back to, you work in a building. How do your lights come on? How does your heating work? Who does that? Oh, that's us. That's a company that comes in. It's a really important service. So I think the awareness needs to start back. I think even, as far back as schools, I didn't know what an FM was when I was in school, and I think we should, go back to the start. It's such a good career path these days, and it can take you anywhere. So I think going back and having maybe a subject in schools, I've often thought about being a lecturer, maybe going back to my old school, showing them where I've got to now in the FM world, and it's something that'd be really interesting doing as well.
I think you should do that. I think that's an amazing
idea. If they have me, I will. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Free of charge, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, because I think it's really important.
It is.
It's not just about managing, buildings. It's a very people-focused industry.
It's people. Yeah, it's a people-led industry. It's so much more than I suppose people would have thought was very technical. You needed, to be an electrician or a plumber, but it's, those days are gone. It's way more strategic. It's a lot more soft skills and people-led.
So what are the top soft skills that you need to be successful in this career?
I think definitely, managing people with empathy as well. Trust.
Yeah.
A lot of staff I have don't necessarily have the hard FM skills, like they're not engineers, even though they run big hard services contracts, but they have the soft skills. They can speak to a client, they can resolve problems rapidly. And I just think communication in my team, let's over communicate to the client. And I think communication for me is number one.
So what's more important, the hard skills or the soft skills?
It depends, because if you have a site where you have to be on the tools and the client expects you to maybe not fix the boiler, but maybe have a first diagnostics of the boiler, and that's what they're paying for in the person, then yes, obviously hard skills are important. But if you are the person that is just making sure that the right skill set goes to site, that the compliance maintenance is done on time, that the call outs are attended in time, that the client's budget is correct and on time, then I think soft skills go a lot more than the hard skills.
So do you need a qualification?
Depending on the role, a lot of my team, they could just have basic, college, administration, business, but we've grown them in the business. Again, they're not engineers. They probably never will be engineers, but they know the business inside out. The important thing is they know the client's business as well and what the client needs and what we need to deliver to the client.
It's really interesting because I see all the time the debates on LinkedIn, whether you need a qualification to go into the FM industry or whether it's more about the softer skills.
And you can't teach soft skills,
No.
It's the hard skills you can teach. It's the soft skills that we can teach, and we can grow people in soft skills. But I think, when someone has those skills, even from interviewing stage, you kind of get that feel for a person.
So with responsibility for P&L, HR and performance across multiple sites, how do you balance financial accountability with service delivery?
If your P&L's right, your service delivery will run smoother. Trust me, it's having that budget in front of the client from day one and getting those agreements. Not only do you and your client have to understand it, but also your team that's on the ground managing that budget. You need to understand that budget inside out, because what I don't like, and I'm sure the client doesn't like either, is any surprises.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't have any surprises in our fixed cost budgets to clients. Obviously just ad hoc reactive works that will, fluctuate throughout the contract. But I do believe that the contract cost should be fixed, barring, inflation or, ERO cleaning. And again, it's if that contract is right and there's no surprises for the client, and also it's a way of predicting, future failures, because we have all our maintenance done at a certain value. We're sort of reading those reports before the next visit is coming up, and we're telling the client, okay, you're paying us for the maintenance, but we can also predict future repairs coming up. So let's also sort of look at CapEx budgets. Let's look at life cycle, which mightn't have even been in the client's forefront, to start planning for next year. Look, your boiler looks like it's going to fail. Your emergency lights looks like you're going to the end of life. So yeah, again, it's, it's predicting their future of the business in terms of their budget as well. So I think it's getting the financials nailed on from an FM and a client point is going to be, you're going to be number one in the client size, I'd say. Again, you touched on HR. So us in FM have to be HR experts, and we are not necessarily HR experts. We kind of learn as we go. So I know in our business, we have a HR business partner, and they support kind of every manager in the company because, we're dealing with disciplinaries. We're doing interviews, we're doing hiring, we're doing the firing, we're doing, staff complain about other staff, clients complain about staff, and we need to handle it right. And we have a duty of care to these staff. So we do heavily rely on our HR function in the business, and we've had to grow that from, let's say, 10 years ago. We wouldn't have had the support we have today in HR.
So what metrics do you rely on the most to measure the success across your portfolio?
Again, so we have our CAFM systems, and they measure everything right through from KPIs. So you can see when a service was due, you can see when the due date was, when the technician attended site, when it was finished, was it completed, first time fix, response times. We've dashboards for, I suppose, absolutely everything. How's your contract, billing, trending, what's your health and safety stats like? And again, very important. And they could be trending in all the right directions. But I also think that going out and speaking to the client, even though I can look at a dashboard and say, God, that site is doing great. All their KPIs are, excellent numbers. And they could have a different perception. Somebody could have pissed them off that day. Excuse my French, you can bleep this out of the podcast.
No, there's no editing.
Or, there's something with the cleaning, or there's something with the security that's we're still trending, but they're just not quite happy with. So again, I think it's going out, meeting the client, doing client surveys, having that one-to-one as well as your fancy dashboards that are trending in all the right directions. It's that, face-to-face communication and feedback from the client that's as vitally as important as all these dashboards and metrics that we have.
You alluded before to asset lifecycle management and the importance of that. What percentage of your customers take asset management seriously?
Nowadays, a lot more than they used to. I think a lot more customers are in charge with kind of ESG, sustainability, CapEx budgets, and they need to report on this stuff. So we see a lot more of it coming in tenders. We're sort of scored on what our kind of CAFM budget and asset lifecycle tool is. So I think, if we're speaking this day and age, very, very high on the radar for clients. It's not only a selling tool, but I think it's how we kind of retain our clients, because we have a really good asset tracking system, which ties in everything from maintenance. If you have a call out from a certain asset, you can see the history behind it, and we carry all that data for the client as well, and we report on it as well. So again, invaluable information on these machines if you're not going the predictive maintenance route.
Yes. You've led teams through major operational changes. What's the key to bringing people with you on that journey?
Again, even our company has gone through a couple of operational changes, and I think it's communication and bringing people along on that journey, and making them feel involved. And it's why are we doing this? What's the impact to the business? What's the impact to the people? What's the positives to the people as well? And I think we need to bring people on that journey. And it's not just, an email message that comes out. The very focused meetings with the stakeholders are the people in your business that's involved. And again, people don't like change because of fear. Fear is change. But when you take people on the journey, I think you get rid of that fear. And then people want to walk with you on this journey as well.
So again, it's a lot about the people management.
It's people management, it's management expectations, motivating people to bring along this journey as well,
And what advice would you give to FMs who are more resistant to change?
We're all guilty of it. I have a couple of people I'd be saying, well, I've been doing it this way for 10 years. Why change? FM is constantly evolving and changing with AI and everything that's coming in. We need to work alongside this technology. It's never going to replace the human aspect of FM. We'll always need that human touch, but we need to embrace it. We need to adapt to it, and it is actually going to help us do our jobs more efficiently in the long run. So embrace the change. It's not going to replace you. It's going to help you work smarter, more data-driven insights for your clients.
So what are the top trends from a technology perspective changing the FM landscape?
I think definitely probably predictive maintenance as well is really big at the moment, especially if you have, pharma sites and downtime can cost a lot of money. And, we're going from I suppose, looking at a planner to actually knowing when does need to be serviced, what's the problem, when are the bearings going to go, and that's the level of detail that those clients want. And you're right, it's the asset tagging, it's the life cycle analysis and tracking, and again, it's kind of a handy dashboard again for, I think, a lot of FMs want to move away from meetings and they want to see more stats on a dashboard of, okay, I want to log in and I want my building to be a smart building and I want to see all my stats and metrics and KPIs, and I don't need to speak to you until that dashboard is telling me that something isn't trending right.
So what can senior FM leaders do to make the industry more visible and attractive to new talent?
Again, I think it's back to awareness, and us, even what I touched on earlier on, it's us as the senior leaders in FM to go back and see if we can support in schools and colleges and courses and apprenticeships as well. I really think that's a big one, especially with the kind of hard services skill shortage in Ireland. Let's go back to apprenticeships in FM. Let's go back to colleges. Let's go back to schools. And even what we're doing today, I think podcast, this is the first kind of podcast I've seen in FM. And I think younger people are more geared towards, podcasts. And, FM is the way, guys. If you're listening to this, it is just such a good career path in FM. They say you start anywhere and you could end up everywhere.
Yes, no, I agree with that. I agree. So what do you love about FM?
No 2 days are the same. I'd even go to say no 2 hours. Are the same in FM anymore, especially when you have such a diverse portfolio as well. Like I've had some calls in that I'll probably never get again in a lifetime as well. That's some funny ones I might leave off the podcast. But yeah, it's unpredictable. It's fast paced. I love the new systems that are coming in. I love that we're heading towards AI. I love the fact that it's gone from being in the background of a client to now you're in the boardroom with the client. Okay, let's look at our ESG targets. Let's look at sustainability. We're now brought into these meetings, whereas before we were, just fixing lights at the back.
You mentioned ESG. It's really interesting because what we are seeing is that it's just landing on FM's desk and they don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to facility managers where ESG just falls on their lap?
Yeah, don't wing it, because this has been given to a client by someone high above and they have targets. So again, every good FM company will have an SME in energy. Again, it's go to that department and develop a roadmap with the client. Also find out what the client's budget is, because I've also ran a lot of these ESGs and, you can come up to a lot of sum of money and it's not what the client had of interest. It was, we just need to save 2% or we need to save X amount of money and that's all we want to spend. So again, there's a lot of low hanging fruit with ESG as well that you can tackle with, timers and, easy wins like that. Staff switching the lights off.
Yeah.
And let's tackle those first and get to the bigger ticket items and find out what your budget is as well.
You mentioned turning lights off. It's actually amazing when you just walk around London at night and you look at all the offices, all the lights are on. It's such an easy thing just to get right.
Yeah. And it's not like, I know some retail stores have lights on because it's sort of advertising.
Yeah.
With commercial offices, there's not really any advertisement there. So yeah, you're right. Just switching the lights off.
Absolutely. Get those lights off.
Yeah. Just put a big switch outside where you can just walk by and
Yeah. So looking ahead, what excites you most about where the FM industry is heading and what still needs to change?
Yeah, I think I'm excited about where it's heading because it's more at the forefront now, especially with clients. I think, we get to the table a lot more with clients. They're open to more projects. And again, they're open to bringing more people on board as well. I could start on a client's contract and, it starts maybe with a cleaning contract. And maybe in a couple of months' time, I've grown it into a hard services contract. And I think once you get in the door with the client and they understand how important FM is, and again, there is kind of synergies to having one FM provider as well for a client, as it's one neck to choke, as my boss always said as well. So I think, the openness of FM, where it's not just a hidden cost, we can actually save you money as well as an expenditure for your business as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about where FM is going in terms of just being at the forefront of our clients' mind now instead of just being a pain in the backside. And again, what needs to change is just the awareness. I think I've mentioned the client's awareness has definitely grown in terms of how important FM is. But I think as a trade, not a lot of young people know how important FM is or such a good skill set or industry it is.
So we have a closing tradition, which is called the FM Fix Reactive Round. So it's just what comes to your
reactive
head.
Maintenance round.
Exactly. We should change the title to that. So What do you think separates a good FM leader from a great FM leader?
A good FM leader manages people. A great FM leader develops people. In my opinion.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone aiming to move from an FM role into a senior leadership position?
Don't be afraid. I was nervous about every probably single role I stepped into, but if somebody in your business has approached you, they think quite highly of you, and quite often you're doing the job already of the senior person above you. So just don't be afraid. Take the leap, take the challenge. You've probably done 80% of the work already in the job that you're doing as an FM.
FM can be a high pressure job. How do you look after your team's well-being while keeping standards high?
Again, it's having those very open, we'd have a weekly meeting and we'd sit down and we call it wins and challenges and then improvements again. So I think we'll start with the kind of challenges, and you can think your week has been hectic and hard because, 2 clients have given out. But when they actually weigh up the wins, they might have had 2 complaints or, misdemeanors, but they had 10 wins that week. So I think that naturally raises morale as well. Again, we look at their career succession, why they're doing what they're doing, where they're going to get to eventually. And then also we have a lot of fun we do a lot of team bonding, and we do anything from bowling to paddle to darts, you name it. So we have a lot of social activities outside of work, especially I kind of do it at quarter ends and year ends because I know it's high pressure. And it's just to kind of take the edge off it and let's go out and blow off some steam, as they say.
It's also very important.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception about FM leadership?
I think we kind of touched on this earlier on as well. I think the biggest misconception about being a leader in FM is that you do kind of need those kind of technical engineering skills. And it's not always about that. FM is so strategic, and it's a strategic thinking person that you need. And I think FM, changing perception from being a technical person to being a strategic leader is, I think, the biggest misconception.
So that goes back to the soft skills, which are equally as important.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Equally or more, depending on the situation, yeah.
Thank you so much for
No
joining us
problem
today. You've got a great
been a
story,
pleasure.
an amazing story, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy listening to it.
I hope so.